Hello. In this video, we are going to take a look at string methods and kind of make a point of understanding how they work. Not so that you memorize these specific ones I show you, but so that as you're trying to solve problems, you're able to read the documentation or find the method that suits your needs. So when you're working with methods, I always tell students there's four things you need to know. You need to know the name of the method, and there's clues in the name of the method. So you'll notice that some of the methods I'm going to go through down here have is in the front. So if you have a method that is or has, that means it returns a Boolean. You need to know what it takes, and those are the parameters. So basically what it takes means what do I have to put inside the parentheses there? What do I have to pass to the method in order to make it work? We need to know what it returns, because the way a method works is I invoke a method and it's like a black box. It goes off and does something. I know what it's doing, but I don't know how it does it. And then it's going to give me something back. So for example, if I have the upper method and I invoke the upper method, it returns a capitalized version of this string. And then finally, you need to know if it's a static or instance method. And this is a little bit more complicated, but I always like introducing these words now. So all of these are examples of instance methods because an instance method is called with an object. So for example, when I call the upper method, I'm going to make a string like word1 equals happy. And then I can't just run upper like this because the question is, who are we actually turning to uppercase? So what we have to do is we have to invoke it with a string like this, word1.upper. So this is what's called the implied object, or the instance that is invoking upper. So when upper runs, who are we applying upper to? We're applying it to happy. So I introduce this word now because it's an important word to know. A static method, on the other hand, is a method that works simply with the parameters. So we've actually seen a couple of these. So one example that we've seen is if I say len_str, that's an example of a static method. And the reason why is that I can calculate the length of whatever's passed. This works perfectly fine having no one calling it. All right, so let's take a look at some examples. So before actually I do that, there's a couple things. It's really important you learn how to read the actual documentation in Python, but I actually prefer the W3 School's method explanations inside their Python. This is a really great resource. You can run through different examples. It's excellent. All right, so let's start with isNumeric. So isNumeric is a method that will basically return true or false. So that's the return type. And it returns true if all of the parts are numeric in the string and false if they're not. So for example, I'm going to say result, I'm going to say word1 is equal to, and I'm going to put 1, 2, 3. And we know that's a string, but that string is going to be, that string it could be converted to an int. I could cast that successfully. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say result1 equals word1 dot is numeric. And then I'm going to print result1. Print result1. So there we go. So what are we doing here? Well, we have this word, it's 1, 2, 3, and then we have a variable called result1, which is going to store what is returned from the function. And when I say word1, the instance is numeric. It's going to check if word1 is numeric. So here now, if I say Python3, string 4, notice how I get true. And that returns true because 1, 2, 3 are all numeric types. If I put 1, 2, a, and I run this again, I get false. So this is an example of a method we might use, an instance method for strings. Next one, word2 equals, and we're going to say cat all capitalized. I'm going to say result2 equals word2 dot is upper. And so what is upper does again is upper takes no parameters. It returns a Boolean, and the clue here is because it uses the word is, and it returns if the word is all uppercase or not. So I'm going to print result1. Oh, result2. And let's just put a print. We'll just print some stars in here so we can see the separation. So we're going to run this now. And so we see that in this case, we get true for the second output because this is all capitalized. If I put CAT, the capital T, then what I can do is I get false because is upper, it's saying that not all of the characters are uppercase. So it turns out that there's actually an is lower as well. Good to know. So let's print another 3 stars. And the next one I have is this method called upper. So what upper does is upper will convert the implied object or the instance that invokes it into all uppercase. So if I take word 3, I'm just going to keep making new ones every time, dog, and I say result 3 equals word 3 dot upper. Again, there's no parameters here. What this returns is it returns an uppercase version of word 3. And I run this. Oh, I need to print result 3. And I give this a whirl. Notice now dog is all uppercase. Now what you see sometimes people doing is I'm making this result 3 variable. You could put this back into word 3 like that. That would be perfectly fine as well to use a self-referencing assignment statement. So for example, if we took an input for the user, something like, this is perfectly valid as well. Give me a word. So if I run this now, give me a word, and I put dog in lowercase, there it is, and I press enter, then it will convert it to uppercase, and it stores it just in the same one. And again, for consistency here, I'm just going to stick with this pattern that we're doing to help us kind of be consistent. Okay, let's print 3 stars. So the next one is find. This is a really, really useful method. Now, what I can't stress enough is that it's really important to learn how to use loops and strings, because that's going to make you a better programmer in the grand scheme of things. But often we can use these shorthand notation. So what the find method does is it will find the first instance of a specific character. So for example, if I say word 4 equals, and we're going to say word 4 is, Back to the Future, that movie I love. And then I'm going to say result 4 equals, and I'm going to say word 4 dot find, and I'm going to find the, and let's print the result. So, result 4, pardon me. So this is a little different here because you see now this function or this method find has a parameter, a single string parameter. And so it's going to take word 4 as the implied object, and it's going to find the instance of the. And so if I run this now, I get 8. What the 8 was referring to is the index. So we see, we always talk about length and index. So this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So the index of the T for the word the is at index 8. Now, the nice thing about find is that what find does is if I search for a word that does not exist, so T, right? We'll do T like that. And I run this, it returns -1. And this understanding comes from practicing and reading the documentation. A general approach that programmers often do is that if you're writing a function or method that searches for something, if it's not found, -1 is commonly a common convention we use to return to indicate that it's not located. Now, a method that is almost identical to find is index. And to be honest, I tend to use index a lot, but that's because I did a lot of Java programming in the past, and I still do. Index and find work almost exactly the same with one significant difference. Wheel of Time, again, great novel series, and we're going to say result 5 equals word 5 dot index, and I'm going to look for the index of the of. Okay, actually, let's do the index of the E just to show you something here. So I'm going to then print result 5. So if I run this now, you'll see that I get 2, because the way index works, and find is the same way, is it actually returns the first instance of it. So if we start here on the left-hand side, index 0, 1, 2, I found the first E, and so it returns that. Now, a nice thing to point out here, let's make a result 6 equals word 5 dot index, and I'm going to pass now 2 parameters. And I'm going to pass the following. I'm going to pass the letter followed by an integer value. And let's just print result 6 and see what happens. So if I run this now, I get 2 still. Let's actually make this 3 and look what happens. I still get 2. There we go. I think I figured it out. It seems with Replit, if you run your program really quickly, it doesn't actually have time to save what you've done. So it was correct here. So what this second parameter does is it actually gives you a starting index. So we can add a parameter to this function saying, I want you to find an E, but it has to be at index 3 or later. So that means that when it actually goes and searches this, it's going to say, okay, well, 0, 1, 2, the E, is there an E either at index 3 or beyond? And in fact, I can actually take this and I can pass it 2 additional parameters. I could say something like, I don't know, let's say 3 through 6. Now this isn't going to change what it actually does, but what we do now here, which is nice, is it actually gives a range of substring within word5 to search for. And in fact, the find works the same way. So if I work back, if I put the up here again and I say something like, let's look at Back to the Future, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So let's say 11, comma 11. Notice now I get this -1 because there's no word the from index 11 and on. And this is something about Python that's really different if you've programmed in some other languages, is that all these methods are what are called overloaded, meaning that you can change the way the method works by changing the number of parameters. And so when you look at the documentation, you'll see this idea here. This is the index documentation on W3 Schools. It says the first parameter value is required, but these 2 parameters are optional. It means it will work whether you give them or not. All right. Now, like I was saying, the last thing about index that is a little bit odd about index is that let's go and change our index here. Let's go back up to this, and we have Wheel of Time, and let's look for the word truth. And so now if I run this, it crashes. And the reason it crashes is because the way index works is that if index does not find what you're looking for, it actually doesn't return -1 like find. It actually throws a value not found error. And again, if you've looked at try and catch in our last exercise, you can use a try and catch to manage this. But I do think find is a better option. The last method I want to talk about here, again, and hopefully you're getting a flavor of how they work, is center. So the way center works, so let's just print again, star, star, star. If I take a word, let's go word 6 equals, ta-da, there it is. And I'm going to say result 6 equals, and I'm going to say word 6 dot center, and I'm going to give it the value 20. What this does, if I print, I'm going to print word 6 first, and then I'm going to print result 6 here, and you'll see that what happens here. If I run this now, oh, I have to solve this problem. Let's look for a W. Now that won't crash. So see here how it says ta-da and then ta-da. What this is doing is when I use the function center, what it returns is the version of the word or the string that's been passed centered with this many characters. So if I say result 6, and let's just put, just for now, let's put a star in front of it, and let's put a star after it. Let's put a star in front of it, and let's put a star after it. And now we run this. Notice how ta-da here is nicely centered across 20 characters. So again, if you're doing a text-based kind of game, which is something I encourage a lot of people to start with, because it stops you from getting lost in the graphics realm, which is really cool, but it gets really complicated quickly. This is a nice way of doing some nice formatting. A little longer video than I hoped, but I hope this helped. And as always, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out.